Deadcells is an awesome collaboration of classic Metroidvania gameplay with the ever so popular with the indies roguelite genre. Together, Deadcells takes a somewhat familiar approach to this genre collaboration, but then presents it in a stellar action-filled package that's just really hard to put down. Deadcells has been in early access for a while on PC, but now is officially out on PC, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PS4 for $24.99 on August 7th. For the most part, Deadcells doesn't really feature a cohesive story. Sure, there's little elements here and there with recurring characters that hint or acknowledge the gameplay mechanics of a roguelite, aka constantly respawning over and over again. However, as for a grand narrative behind the game, well, there really isn't one. Story isn't really the star of this game. That would instead be the gameplay, and oh boy is there some fun gameplay with Deadcells. Deadcells has you play as a headless protagonist who is constantly waking up on this cursed island. This cursed island is made of different levels, rooms, and ultimately labyrinths that connect the island in its entirety. As you explore the ever-expanding mazes, you'll come across deadly enemies, new skills, weapons, and more as you're tasked with beating the final boss in one go, or failing to permadeath and restarting your mission from zero. You start your adventure with 2 slots for melee weapons and 2 slots for abilities. You have some default melee weapons at the start of the game, but by collecting blueprints for new weapons and stills from enemies that fuel those new creations, you can forge new weapons, better your chances of surviving with every game you take. The melee weapons come in different variations from large swords, knives, daggers, bows, all of which have different attack stats and effects. Combat is pretty straightforward with X and Y representing your melee attacks while the shoulder buttons represent your abilities. The flow of attacking your enemies, dodge rolling, or double jumping to avoid attacks feels swift and fluid. It's certainly not just a roguelike with a great progression system, but one with a fun battle system that just feels good to play. It's that excitement in the battle mechanics, finding new abilities and powerful attacks that kept me wanting to explore the ever so changing island pattern. It's all built on this risk and reward system that rewards those that keep playing, but at the risk of losing all their hard-earned weapons and cells used to manufacture those weapons. With that said, as you go through the oddly satisfying pain of reaching a far end point in the game and then dying, it's nice to see your progression of earned blueprints, weapons, and the glass tubes at the start of the game. It's not entirely smooth sailing though. There were some moments where I felt like the roguelite system would almost trick me with the level design. I'd often find these pathways that the game's algorithm would create that just led me down long paths that eventually led to nowhere. Just a ton of similar enemies to fight. Those moments could occasionally make the gameplay feel a bit cheap, though the feeling didn't really last too long before I was already backtracking on my way to the next level. Deadcells' presentation screams quality across the board. It looks like a modernized 16-bit action platformer with an absurd amount of fluid animation. Just standing still in the middle of a scene and not doing anything still has so much sense of life in the moment. Fog coming from the background, torches flowing to the breeze, and enemies dropping bright shining particles. The animation process just went through this insane amount of detail. I've played and reviewed countless roguelike Metroidvania games on this channel before, and while they've come in different art styles, Deadcells really makes a name for itself with its own style that truly does shine. I played primarily on Nintendo Switch and PC, and while the PC version was pretty darn flawless, I did notice a bit of frame rate dips on the Switch version. Specifically with flying enemies and just flying background elements like bats, I noticed that their frame rate was slightly off compared to the rest of the game. Almost how like in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, the gameplay ran at 60 frames per second, but things like the Pokemon and the assist trophies ran at 30. Outside of that little hiccup, the experience on the Switch translated pretty well from the PC version, whether I was playing in dock or portable mode. Much like its visuals, Deadcells doesn't slouch when it comes to the audio department either. While there are some occasional music tracks in this game, most of the time I noticed that the sound in the game was made up of ambient noise that really set the mood of wherever I was. From the murky sewers of a dungeon to the dark ominous looking forest. Just about everything had a sound effect and changed accordingly to the setting. It really helped the immersion of the gameplay. There's even distinct sound differences for the weapons to the types of platforms you can walk on. One thing I think could have been improved though was the HC rumble on the Switch version. There is a bit of use in this version, though only when you get hit by an enemy. I feel like it would have been much more effective if it was attached to some sort of strong melee attack or a power, something to really give the attacks that sense of umph. The way it is right now just feels a little bit tacked on. Deadcells has been in early access for about a year now, and with it finally being released, a lot of growth through its development can be seen. It's certainly one of the best roguelite metroidvania collaborations I've ever had the pleasure of reviewing on this channel. It's presented in a marvelous way, but backed with equally fun to experience gameplay. Outside of a few odd labyrinth designs and some performance hiccups that were really just small blemishes on the Switch version, Deadcells was a game I just could not put down. No matter the platform you're on, Deadcells is a game you should certainly pick up. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. That does it for my review of Deadcells for the PC, Switch, Xbox One, and PS4. If you enjoyed the video, then please be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more reviews just like this every single week, and you can check out my most recent videos on the left side of the screen. Thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.